I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's newscast, a group of IDF soldiers come under fire in the West Bank. Hundreds of activists rise up in an Israeli settlement to protest its demolition, and the death of a Holocaust survivor brings together over 200 strangers. Stay tuned for the latest news in Israel. An Israeli soldier has been wounded just south of Jerusalem after taking part in an overnight mission in the area. According to statements from the military spokesman, IDF forces were on a mission in the West Bank when one or more unknown assailants opened fire. The wounded soldier was immediately administered medical treatment at the scene. The incident occurred near the settlement of Ofra in the Etzion block, a little less than 13 miles outside of the Israeli capital. Soldiers are now scouring nearby areas in search of the assailants. And in related news, other troops successfully apprehended 4 wanted Palestinians on charges of clashes with Israeli civilians and security forces. 2 of the suspects were captured in the same Etzion area, and the other pair was arrested just half a mile north of Jerusalem's Old City in the Arab village of Anata. Tensions are rising again between Israel and the Hamas leaders of the Gaza Strip after the Jewish state's retaliation to a rocket from the coastal enclave. Yesterday, the Air Force attacked 5 Hamas bases in the Gaza Strip hours after a rocket was fired from the Palestinian territory into southern Israel. The missile landed in an open area on Monday, failing to cause any Israeli casualties. Palestinian sources say at least 4 people were wounded in the Israeli strikes. The terror group's spokesman released a statement warning Israel not to target what he refers to as Hamas's resistance positions.
العدو الإسرائيلي يريد أن يفجر الأوضاع في قطاع غزة وفرض معادلات جديدة على المقاومة وعلى أهلنا في القطاع. المقاومة الفلسطينية لديها موقف واضح وثابت أنها لا يمكن أن تسمح مطلقا بفرض أي معادلات جديدة أو تسمح للعدو الإسرائيلي أن يستمر في كسر إرادة شعبنا الفلسطيني من خلال استهداف الممتلكات والمنشآت ومواقع المقاومة، وبالتالي يتحمل المسؤولية الكاملة عن تدهور الأوضاع في قطاع غزة وتفجيرها مع المقاومة الفلسطينية هي حكومة الاحتلال الإسرائيلي التي يجب أن تتوقف عن ارتكاب أي حماقات جديدة بحق أهلنا في القطاع.
There's been no immediate claim of responsibility for the rocket attack from the Gaza Strip, but Israel's long made it clear that it holds Hamas accountable for all terrorism emanating from its territory.
אין לנו שום רצון, שום כוונה ליזום שום מהלך צבאי ברצועת עזה. אבל גם אין לנו שום כוונה לספוג טפטופים. אנחנו לא ניכנס לפינג פונג של ירי וירי כנגד. ואני מציע לחמאס לקחת אחריות, לעשות סדר ולהירגע.
The last large-scale conflict between the two sides took place in 2014. Since then, Hamas has observed a de facto ceasefire with Israel, although small armed cells of Islamic terrorists have been launching close to 2 rockets a month at the Jewish state. Israeli border police and protesters are facing off against each other in the Ofra settlement today as officials get ready to demolish 9 homes in the community. Hundreds of settlers and their supporters came to the site, with many barricading themselves inside some of the homes. Others have been climbing onto the rooftops where they've been calling on police to refuse evacuation orders. Israel's High Court of Justice dismissed the settlers' final appeal only yesterday, upholding its November 2016 ruling that the buildings are to be razed by March 5th because they were found to be built illegally on privately owned Palestinian land. So far today, the only clashes reported have been shoving matches between right-wing activists and security forces. Most of the families living in the condemned buildings have already left. Settler leaders have said that though they oppose the evacuation, they're doing their best to avoid any violent confrontations.
We feel that this is not right at all, what's being done here. The destruction of these homes in the center of a Jewish town, in the center of a populated town that was established legally 42 years ago. I'm sure there's going to be peaceful civil disobedience. People are not just going to walk out of their homes.
Police began carrying out preventative arrests of far-right activists this past weekend as part of their mission to avoid any repeat of the violence that erupted during the evacuation of the Amona outpost earlier this month. Israel captured the West Bank from Jordan in 1967 and began building settlements, an act viewed as illegal by much of the international community. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is reportedly saying that he still hasn't reached an agreement with U.S. President Donald Trump when it comes to the future of Israeli settlement construction in the West Bank. ILTV's Aaron Porras has more on the story.
During a Likud party meeting, unnamed sources have reported that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu claimed that he's working with the White House to create a mechanism to deal with future settlement construction, but that it's not as easy as some Knesset members might think. The faction meeting is said to have gotten heated when some MKs advocated for the annexation of large areas of the West Bank, while others think it's best to further separate from the Palestinians while retaining Israeli control over the West Bank. Netanyahu is believed to have cautioned his party members that while the Trump presidency can be viewed as an historic opportunity, it is also important to be very aware of its limits. Lately, the Israeli leader has been walking a political tightrope. While he's avoiding advocating for the two-state solution, he's also been ignoring calls from his right-wing coalition partners to fully renounce it. During his recent summit in Washington, Netanyahu said he doesn't want to annex close to 2.5 million Palestinians to Israel. But on his subsequent state visit to Australia, he vowed that Israel will never relinquish its security control over the West Bank.
Even more concern is rising in the United States as Jewish communities across the nation are facing a fifth wave of bomb threats since the beginning of this year. Another 28 Jewish community centers and schools were evacuated yesterday, in addition to the Anti-Defamation League office in San Francisco. The targeted facilities were located in at least 13 states nationwide. Young children were forced to flee in terror from their classrooms for the second or even the third time amid the ongoing crisis. Fortunately, no actual bombs have been found at any of the sites. American law enforcement officials are scrambling to apprehend the perpetrators behind the recent flood of anti-Semitism, though as of yet they've made no arrests. Several of the Jewish community centers that were evacuated were near Philadelphia, where a Jewish cemetery was found vandalized only a day earlier. This follows a similar incident in St. Louis last week. In response to these acts of vandalism, two Muslim American activists have started a crowdfunding campaign to raise money for repairs. Within just 3 hours, they fulfilled their $20,000 goal and are now sending their surplus funds to repair the vandalized Jewish cemetery in Philadelphia. So far, they've already raised over $130,000.
The fact that this is happening in the year 2017 in the United States of America is really sad, and I hope that our Muslim community, just as we did last week with St. Louis, will continue to stand with our Jewish cousins to fight this type of hatred and bigotry against our Jewish cousins and against any other marginalized or otherized communities right now in America. We're in a very difficult time in the United States when people cannot even rest in peace after they pass away, where people have to be worried about their ancestors' graves. It's insane. It's insane. And first and foremost, as human beings, we should be concerned before even being concerned as Muslims. This is a human issue.
It looks like Israel may be looking forward to a lot more newcomers because the number of U.S. Jews who are expressing interest in moving to the country is rising drastically. While there's always been American immigration to the Jewish state, many believe the current spike is related to increased acts of anti-Semitism against American Jewish communities. ILTV's Aaron Porras has the scoop.
At least 1,500 people attended a fair in New York to find out more about possibly relocating to Israel. This event and others like it are sponsored by the Nefesh B'Nefesh nonprofit group to assist Jews from the United States, Canada, and the UK who are in the process of making aliyah or immigrating to Israel. This is the 9th year the event has been held, and organizers say the packed crowd demonstrates a record high interest. Over 50 sessions, workshops, and individual meetings with Aliyah professionals were available to participants to explain the process of immigration to Israel. Additional Aliyah fairs are scheduled to be held in Los Angeles, Toronto, and Montreal, as well as in several European countries like France. In response to the unabating uptick of anti-Semitism in Europe and North America, Israeli opposition leaders have begun calling for an emergency national program to prepare for significant waves of Jewish immigration.
Now let's turn to an eye-opening interview that I had earlier this week. Modern slavery still exists, and in many places around the world it comes in the form of human trafficking. Yigal Tzur is a travel show host and author who's seen this tragic issue with his own eyes while traversing the world. And now he's just published a book about the tragic story of one Israeli family who experienced human trafficking firsthand. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you as well.
All right,
nice
so
being here.
I'm frustrated this is in Hebrew. We'll talk about when it's going to be available in English because I would love to read this. But can you tell us a little bit more about the story?
I'll tell you like this. Basically, the story is about a mother who is opening a new hotel in Koh Samui, in the island of Koh Samui in Thailand, and it's a great day. And the next day is the bat mitzvah of the daughter. And this morning the daughter is going out to the beach. She see a Thai lady who is doing, the hair with the, and she said to mom, "Oh, I'm going for a few seconds to the beach," and then she disappeared. And of course the book is a thriller about the mother. She's becoming like, a real tough after seeing that nobody's helping her. Not the police, not the Israeli police, not the Interpol, not the Thai police. And she said, "Where's my daughter?" Well, there's been so many stories like this, but what I was interested in one aspect is, the Israeli, I would say, ambience. A lot of Israelis are now living in Thailand and Cambodia, and part of them are not on the right side, I would say, of the law. A lot of criminals, petty criminals, people who can't stay here, so they move to Thailand because it's sort of, playground for all things. The second part was because I was traveling so much in Thailand and basically in Cambodia, when you still see like this sort of human traffic, of sex traffic, unfortunately a lot of Israelis, I would not say maybe part of the but they're taking part of it, even participating. So I was, seeing so many of this, so I was thinking how I can combine the two stories together. I cannot change the world, but at least I can point and say, guys, they should be stopped, so...
Well, I can imagine. I mean, that was probably one of the bigger inspirations were your travels in Thailand, and I think that there are a lot of people who travel to that part of the world, not necessarily with the best intentions in mind,
not.
But I also think there are people who don't even realize that this human trafficking is happening around them, and they're seeing it firsthand, the people who are working in the tourism industry.
One of the motivation of the lost person, I met a Canadian lady, and she was looking for a daughter for a long time. So this of the lost person, there's so many people who get lost, Israeli persons, young guys basically, after army. So I was involved in searching and even going out as a journalist to cover these stories, and I tried to pull all this and looking into a bit of the moral side of the Israeli outside of Israel. And my view,
It wasn't as pretty as you thought, as you hoped it would be.
No, exactly not. So it's a bit, first of all, it's a thriller, it's a story, but I sense I had to, stand and put a moral side of the author and of myself as a person who see a lot of this, and guys, please stop doing it. That's the point.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming in and telling us about your story and this amazing book. I'm waiting for it to come out in English.
Well, the second one, which I published just before, is coming now, hopefully in a year or so. It's called Death in Shangri-La. A different story.
All right,
Thank you.
another book to look out for. Now, here's a beautiful story for everyone. A group of Palestinian women in Gaza are working together to help survivors of breast cancer, and many of them have faced the devastating disease themselves. Well, many of us have the privilege of being able to go out for dinner or even just open a full fridge. Every night, roughly 1 in every 8 people go to bed hungry. The number of people living with chronic hunger has dropped significantly in recent years, but the agriculture industry is still under heavy pressure to keep up with the world's growing population. Well, now one Israeli company has come up with an incredible new system that both efficiently and effectively helps our farms keep up with the growth. Joining me today to tell us more about her company is the CEO and founder of Soulship, Dr. Shani Kaisal. Thank you so much for coming in.
I'm happy to be here.
Great. So tell us, what does Soulship do? I see that you have this device right here with you.
Well, as a matter of fact, Soulship is an Internet of Things company which developed a unique power and energy platform and communication based on its solar chip. So this is the innovation of Soulship, the solar chip. And what I'm holding in my hand is the electrical card, which gives communication and power. The solar chips gather the energy from light from the surrounding and give it to the application. In this case, we use this application to get data from sensors for agriculture.
Wow. Okay. So is there anything that exists like this on the market right now, or?
Of course, there is competitions, but the competition is usually today at the agriculture. They use instead of battery, they use wires or batteries to supply the energy. Yes.
Right. So
exactly.
This is extremely important for the environment.
Absolutely. Also, there are other solar big panels in the market, but the uniqueness of our product that it's on our, there is a special design of the solar chips. So overall, the energy efficiency of the system is very, very high. And that's why we can support it with such a small unit, the needs of communication and sensors. So this is an important thing in agriculture, where you have to have the unit protected, sealed, protected against machines and animals. So with other solutions, which are much bigger and based on wires, they are quite uncomfortable and not being used so well. So
my question for you is, how has this affected crop yield? I mean, what does it mean for farmers that are using it?
Well, the area that is really, we are covering quite strong with a lot of customers coming indeed from agriculture. The idea is to gather data, to send it to the cloud, and then to do the analysis and decide what to do. For example, one of the basic things is to give water to the crop. So you need to give the exact amount of water.
Right, you don't want to waste water.
Exactly. First, you don't want to waste. The second, you want to have a good yield, and this is affect the yield as well. Right. But not only water. We're measuring the temperature and other important parameters for the crops, and depends on the kind of the crop. It helps also to make less expenses on operation. For example, we have a customer in South America which is measuring the size of the fruit, and he sits 700 kilometers from the planet. Right. So he knows when to come to pick exactly on time. And these are examples of how to make the things much cheaper for him to
Absolutely. Now, my question is, can you use this solar chip for other type of industries as well, not just agriculture?
Absolutely. I mentioned we are an IoT company, so another segment we already have a finished pilot and companies ramping up is smart cities. Wow. So as a matter of fact, we give energy to sensors. It can be many kinds of sensors. Some examples here is for smart parking. There are companies, how to find an open
parking spot in a very crowded Tel Aviv. It can be very difficult to do that.
Exactly, yes. And it's all over the world, not only in Tel Aviv.
That's true.
So we did not develop sensor, but we supplied the platform, the energy and the communication. Another example, which is also going to be quite important, is to do waste management, smart waste management. It means to come to pick up the trash, right. Exactly when the bin is in the same full, but not too much, so it goes out, or not too empty, because it costs a lot to send there in the car.
Well, it seems
again,
like
and so on and so on. Another hot area in smart cities is asset tracking. We are also having, we are providing the energy and sometimes also the communication. In this unit, there is also the ability to have a chip of communication. We do the storage as well, but the customers are developing the sensor and the rest of the application. So it's.
I mean, it sounds like you guys have created something that has the ability to impact the world, not only the agriculture industry, and it comes in a very small form.
Yes.
So, well, thank you so much for coming in,
Okay.
and I'm excited to see what you guys do with this in the future.
Thank you.
Let's face it, most young people are addicted to their electronics. That's why some of Israel's young soldiers were recently assigned the dream challenge of creating new technological solutions for the army in a 24-hour marathon session that's been dubbed as the Hackathon. 18 teams of 90 soldiers were each assigned the mission to come up with new military applications for chatbots. For those of you who don't know, those are computer programs that let users converse with machines through text or even conversation. The countdown began at 9 in the morning, and the soldiers had the next 24 straight hours to brainstorm, nap, order pizza, or do anything else they needed, as long as they worked their magic with algorithms, tools, and codes to generate fresh apps to meet the ever-changing needs of the IDF. The teams even had access to artificial intelligence experts who provided guidance in a field that's expected to play a significant role in any future wars. Participants come from the Israeli Air Force, ground units, and the Army's technology division. The IDF's elite Lotem unit more or less hacked the concept of the hackathon 3 years ago from Israel's high-tech industry and leading academics, who use the same principles to nurture the flow of energy and innovation. There are strong ties between the army and private enterprise who learn from one another's skills and expertise, all contributing to the Jewish state's reputation as the startup nation. Sadly, many Jews emerged from the Holocaust as the sole survivors of their entire communities, but here in Israel, over 200 strangers made it their mission to make sure that even in death, one Holocaust survivor would not be forgotten. 19-year-old Hildy Nathan passed away 2 weeks ago in the Canary Islands, leaving no next of kin. She grew up in Germany, where her family dreamed of moving to the land of Israel, but were unable to get visas to leave. Despite their desperate attempts to flee, they wound up at the Theresienstadt concentration camp, where tens of thousands of Jews were murdered. Hildy's father died not long after the war and is buried in Germany, while her mother passed away a few years ago and was laid to rest in the Jewish state. As part of her final wishes, she asked to be placed next to her mother, and the 20 or so members of the local Jewish community raised enough money to fly her body to Israel for burial. As in many similar cases, more than 200 Israelis responded to requests for mourners to attend the funeral. Organizers say that despite a childhood of humiliation with no name and only a number, people she never even knew gave Hilde the dignified burial she deserved. The only person at the service who knew her was another Holocaust survivor who says that even though Hilde always lived alone, it seems that the entire people of Israel have come to say goodbye, so she doesn't have to leave alone.
The Hebrew word of the day is brought to you by the University of Haifa, Hebrew Summer Ulpan, open to everyone.
And now for our Hebrew word of the day. We've all grown up learning the golden rule: treat others the way that you would like to be treated yourself. That's why today's word is kavod, which means respect in Hebrew. Let's face it, you've got to give respect to get it yourself. And here in Israel, a country full of very proud people, you certainly have to earn kavod if you want to make things happen for yourself. There are lots of different ways to do that. This week, over 200 strangers showed up to pay their kavod at the funeral of a Holocaust survivor in Israel. And all the way in the United States, Muslim activists showed their kavod by raising over $130,000 to repair vandalized Jewish cemeteries. Now, don't worry if you feel like you don't always have the time or the means to practice kavod in these types of ways. Small acts of kindness do go a long way, and even just flashing a smile to a stranger on the street can be your own special show of kavod. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight should be partly cloudy with scattered showers and a low of 56 or 13 degrees Celsius. You can expect tomorrow to be roughly the same, but with a slight drop in temperatures to a high of 69 or 21 degrees Celsius. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.66 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv. Thanks for watching and see you next time.